Yo, what is going on, everyone? Welcome to the hotline. It's your boy, JenksTCG. Today we got a special guest from Down Under. It's going to be great. It's Hotline, the show with the hottest takes and the hottest topics. Yeah, it's been a long night. Got off work. We're vibing in a nice little dress-up shirt. Figured I'd mix it up for this one. We're going to go ahead and hop into the main show, introduce the co-host as always, and our guest. Here we go.
We are with Players Cup finalist Matty Burris.
We are talking about Burnout and Pikarom to start the show. Then we're going to go ahead and get into some topics. For you that don't know Matthew Burris, he's kind of insane. He's slept on a little bit, down from the Australian region. A lot of players that are in that area, not always talked about all the time. And Burris, good friend of mine and Henry, he top 8 Brazil earlier this year, and then he got finalists at the Players Cup, won at regionals. I'm pretty sure, like, crazy accomplishments for the man, the myth, the legend, Matthew Burris, fellow Don's worker. So get some Don's hype in the chat, and yeah, it's gonna be a good time. We're gonna start talking about burnout. I think my chat knows I've been dealing with a lot of burnout recently, and especially when that quarantine period started, happening, it was rough. There's no motivation to play the game. The Players Cup is only so you can only go so far to get such a minuscule reward in terms of the grand scheme of things. You play against all these great players, and then your top 4 people out of a 256 double elim bracket get there. So like the motivation's super low, and obviously we can't do a whole lot of stuff about it, the way the world is at right now. But yeah, it sucks. And I don't know, Henry, if you've been dealing with it or how you've been dealing with it. I know you've been streaming every once in a while, but I know that the content creation for me, like, it sometimes feels like I'm forced to play a game that I don't want to play, and then it just feels like a job, and don't want to work another job. So that's definitely how it feels like to me sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I think I haven't been able to derive too much enjoyment from the game for a little bit. I think messed around with some fun rogues at the start, but as Matt was saying, it's become very kind of figured out and solved almost to a degree at this point. And so that kind of aspect of it is gone. And in terms of actual playing the game is still do fun, but I think largely this is also attributed to the fact that we have no IRL tournaments, we have no goal to pursue, we have no can't even get the social enjoyment. Like, a lot of the time you might not enjoy the game, but you'll go, you'll still put in your effort and your time, and you'll see your friends, you have a good time, and it's just much more enjoyable to play IRL in general. And so it's easy to feel kind of burned out when there's not that aspect, and not, I guess, the real fun in the game, which is really not in the game itself, but rather in the kind of social aspect of events, at least in my eyes. So I think that's about it. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, so I think in the past there have been formats that I haven't enjoyed, but at least you have that social aspect where, even if you do badly or you pick a bad deck and, you're not having fun with the actual game itself, you can at least chill with your friends, and if one of them's doing well, you can help them along, ask if they need anything, if they need testing with a matchup for the second day of a regional or whatever. Whereas now the rewards for playing the game are at an all-time low. I don't think there's outside of the online tournament circuit, there isn't really much it doesn't feel as rewarding to crack a format because there's nothing really on the line outside of Players Cup or whatever. And even then in Players Cup, the rewards are so top heavy where as Will said, you can make it through a whole 256 bracket in NA, which is one of the hardest regions, then make it to the top 8 of that bracket, and then still just get the same rewards as literally everyone else. It feels like it would just feel pretty horrible to have all that works and just be hey, here's some sleeves and a virtual deck box and some virtual packs, not to mention, with your homies, you kind of chill with them, at least get a nice dinner and have fun. It's more or less just oh well, I lost. I can just go back to my normal life now, and nothing's really changed. Yeah, and not to mention the best deck in the format, ADP, is so good right now. There's very little reasons to play anything else, which makes the format quite stale.
Absolutely, and yeah, it sucks. I know that a lot of the stuff that kept me playing the game was the people involved in it, just being able to go to events, see people that, I've come to become really good friends with, and people I'd consider lifelong friends. And I feel like over time now I'm starting to drift away from these people, and it really sucks. Dinners after regionals and events in general, like you were mentioning, are always a good time. It's great to meet new people, and online you play against someone, you lose, they spam some emotes, that's it, that's the interaction. Like, it's just a GG's and a well played from there. You don't actually get to meet the opponent. And I know in the POG championships, like, there were a ton of people I'd never played before, and didn't get to actually meet them or talk to them. It was just playing online, and then that's it, and you move on. And stuff is so fast online. Like, the regionals, they take long, but that time that you're there is so, like, the quality is amazing while you're there. You can do bad and still have a good time because there's someone else that's also doing bad. It's like guaranteed. There's always a pair that's doing bad, and then you just vibe out for the rest of the tournament, and it's always a good time. But yeah, it definitely does not feel good to miss the social interaction. I think that's probably something the rest of the world is dealing with as well. Just people that their entire fun life was school or work into social outings, and now those are kind of looked down upon, and it's just hard. I think a lot of the people feel the same way, and then Pokemon is obviously a little special, but still the same thing.
Yeah, and I think especially in Australia, we had like a pretty tight knit community. Like Brisbane regionals where Burris won, Matt won. I stayed at his house. He drove us to the event. Only to beat me, but. Like this is very, very tight knit, very small, and it feels just a shame to miss out on that, where everyone kind of knows each other, and it's an environment that we're sorely lacking. Now, getting into one deck that we've been wanting to talk about, Matt, how do you feel about Pikarom? I know you played it to qualify for the actual Players' Cup finals. You played through it. How do you feel the deck has changed, and do you think it's actually still good?
So I can understand the power. Obviously, it lost a lot of like really good tools that it was sort of that were really integral to its matchup lines, and now there's sort of like really powerful cards like Electro Power and Thunder Mountain have been replaced by less powerful cards like Crushing Hammer. Even then, like the Crushing Hammer, if you miraculously flip a heads on it, you can buy a turn and get another attack off, which in a way is sort of like supplementing your damage, because if your opponent's a turn behind, then you basically get a free attack as opposed to like buffing your attack on that specific turn. And I think Raichu has always been an extremely powerful card, having auto paralysis. Auto paralysis has been like a great what would you call it, like attribute to basically any card. We've seen it with deck and cover a Selgor. We've seen it with Shock Clock. Like auto paralysis has always been a really powerful attribute to any card, and it makes sense that Raichu plus like Reset Stamp and Crushing Hammers would make a lot of decks crumble. Like Center Scorch and Eternatus, they really strive to set up their one big dude that just attacks and wins the game. So being able to lower their hand size and paralyze it, and just say, hey, if you don't draw a way to get out of this paralysis, I take a free 3 prizes. So it makes sense that sort of strategy is still viable, albeit a bit less powerful than pre-rotation.
Yeah, I think also one of the strengths of the deck combined with Crushing Hammer is that it has such good energy tempo with Full Blitz that once you kind of get rolling, you're kind of set for the rest of the game most of the time, and especially with Boltund as well. The deck is inherently pretty consistent, and so unfortunately it's just a little bit under the base power level of other decks, which forces it to play Crushing Hammer, which I can understand why it feels like a begrudging choice in a lot of ways, but I feel like it's the only way you win a lot of matchups, but it actually makes a lot of them fairly strong, I'd say.
Absolutely. For me, I was really happy with Pikarom coming back. I was watching Azul's stream doing some homework for my astronomy class with Katron, and I was just kind of sitting there watching his stream, and sure enough, he gets paired against Pedro, who's playing the 60 that won the Limitless thing, and then Azul made some edits. So when I saw Pikarom getting played, I was like, oh, okay, someone's trying to make it work, and I watch Azul get bodied by Pedro, and Azul was playing the Tord Scorch deck, and I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty interesting. And sure enough, I played a little bit with it myself, and then Azul won the second tournament, and then Danny won another tournament, so it won 3 tournaments last weekend. I've been playing all my Players' Cup qualifiers with it since, and I've really liked it. I've won quite a few. It's kind of fixed the ratio that I had going for me. I was not doing too well, but now I'm back on track, and it's been a lot of fun. I agree with Henry, I think, said it. It's consistent. Like, it's pretty good at just setting up and doing what it needs to. And, although it doesn't have Electro Power and other things to make those damage mods comparable to other decks, it can get there. And, a turn 2 Full Blitz is pressure enough compared to a lot of these other decks. And when you have Big Charm, Zacian can't actually KO the Pikarom, and hammers, you flip a few heads in there, you can really get ahead. And as Matthew said, the stamp plus hand size disruption is insane. And Chaotic Swell with a hand disruption can kind of put any fire deck out of like use, really. Welder with no Hearth is pretty useless, and then if they get 1 energy, they might not be KOing anything, so then they have to draw the switch. You take a free prize, and you can force something active with Lightning Ride. It's really cool to see Pikarom come back, and I think it was really neat how on the first episode of the podcast we talked about Pikarom with Ian Robb, and then K-Tron came on with Dragapult, and we're starting to see some of these other decks come back into play, and we're kind of moving away from ADP a little bit. I feel like every time I hit ADP with Pikarom, I'm just kind of like, okay, that's fine. Just got to play a little bit better, make sure that everything's good, and then from there, it's usually pretty fine.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of interesting development. It's just, again, unfortunate, I guess, the way that it takes some of its wins. I think if it was still able to be successful without Crushing Hammer, to be a really, really nice deck, because I think losing Thunder Mountain and Electro Power removed a lot of the volatility of the Pikarom had that was unfun to play against. Things like, turn 1 Full Blitz with like a ton of Electro Powers, like random kind of high roll things that always gave them a chance to win and felt really bad to lose to. And those are all gone now, so I think the deck's really skillful and pretty expressive. Just, I guess, unfortunate that a lot of it can still have the volatility with coin flips, but I'd still much rather lose to that, I think, than ADP announcing boss twice.
Yeah, I think one weakness to the deck now that it didn't necessarily have before is that sort of if you fall behind with the deck, it's extremely hard to fall back it's extremely hard to like come back in a game if you're not able to like establish a strong board, because pre-rotation you sort of had like Electro Power to come back on. It's like, all right, my opponent got the first knockout, but it's okay because I have Electro Power and boss, and I can take a big knockout back. Whereas now it's more or less like if you fall behind, your only win condition is reset stamp and maybe a paralysis. So that's like one weakness I've found with the deck, and I guess that strategy means that if you fall behind against the deck like ADP, not saying that like literally any other deck can beat an ADP if they fall behind, but this one in particular feels like if you fall behind against that deck and they announce boss ultimate raid, it becomes almost impossible to win. So other than that, like the deck doesn't really have any glaring weaknesses and pretty much does what it's always done, and floods the board with energy and makes sure it's got an attacker powered up every turn.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. I just think it's great. Cash also mentioned in the chat that Dragapult won a Dark DA mini series as well. So yeah, definitely seeing these less talked about decks come back, and I don't know. I think that's a pretty good wrap on Pikarom. It's just nice to have a breath of fresh air back in the format.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move into the hotline part of the show. We got our first question kind of bringing us back to the topic of burnout. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and drag in the first caller. It's a returning guest. How's it going? Where are you calling from? And what's your name?
Hi. Hi, I'm Jacob Collins, username Kazuma, and I'm calling from Toronto, Canada.
Great to have you on the show again, Jacob. Welcome back. And what's your topic and take for today?
My topic is, you all mentioned that it was very difficult to maintain motivation playing competitive Pokemon trading card game these days. But you all seem to be doing it and excelling. Do you have any ideas or advice on how to keep your head in the game despite the current situation and keep moving forward in the Pokemon trading card game?
All right, that's a great topic, and I'm ready to answer. I'm going to go ahead and give it over to Burris, and then we'll move into Henry and then myself.
Yeah, so I think this is actually a really great question, and I'm not sure I have the complete answer for myself. Obviously, I've stated my, I guess, dissatisfaction with the state of the game and the lack of IRL tournaments. But I think the main thing that's keeping me in is making sure you have a tight knit group of friends to make sure that you have ideas to at least bounce off of, and really making sure you're not turning yourself into an echo chamber of ideas of like, oh, I hate the game, this sucks, all my decks are bad, I'm playing badly. You really want to make sure you have at least like a group of friends to, I suppose discuss ideas with, and even if it's not like, even if you're not talking about Pokemon, you can still like say, hey, this Pikarom deck's been doing pretty well, maybe we should try it out. But yeah, making sure that you're not turning yourself into an echo chamber, and having people around you to at least keep your motivation up. And because if you don't have anyone else around you playing, it'd be pretty easy to just call it quits and say that's it, I'm not playing anymore. Having people around you will at least keep you slightly motivated.
So,
Yeah, I agree with what both saying. Sorry to cut you off. I think
no problem.
I do agree largely, but I think it's also important to make sure you have a goal that you want in the game. Like, at least for yourself, what do you think it is that you want to achieve at the moment?
Myself, I don't know. I just I want to start getting into tournaments and winning more games in the tournaments. I don't have any big goals, but I want to like just keep improving my Pokemon playing ability and stay motivated to go into more tournaments.
Yeah, so I think that's obviously a goal in itself, right? We don't need to have a specific lofty end kind of result you want, but I think even just in the short term, that's the main thing. And also at the same time, don't feel bad about giving yourself a break as well. Like if you're not enjoying it, at least in the short term, you're probably going to struggle to kind of get where you want, like struggle to improve if you're not enjoying it. And so I think taking a week, 2 weeks, however long you kind of feel off, or if it be like playing, I guess, more enjoyable decks, off meta decks, kind of whatever keeps the game fresh to you. But at the same time, if you have like clear priorities and goals, that may stop getting demotivated, and it may stop you kind of losing some interest in the game. If you have, let's say, you rather than like you said you want to play win more games in tournaments, right? Rather than saying, okay, I really want to play the game, your goal can be, I really want to do well in a tournament. And so if you shift the focus off that, it can be probably easier to maintain a little bit of motivation.
I see. Thanks.
And as for myself, I was pretty convinced I was going to quit after the quarantine shutdown, probably 2 weeks into it. I'm not going to lie. I was feeling super burnt out from the top 16 chase, and that was definitely something that I was struggling with pre-quarantine. I was even, struggling with motivation then, and really the only thing that kept me going was the like kind of the platform and the people lifted me up saying, oh, congrats on the top 8, whatever. Just doing well over and over again was what was keeping me up. And I was pretty convinced I was going to quit. I was just feeling burnt out. I kept going to events and I wasn't having fun with the game anymore, and as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it was feeling like a job. And then I started content creation, and in a sense, although I like content creation a lot, in some forms, I feel like content creation has kind of pressured me to stay in it at the same time. I don't put as much time into the game, nearly as much, obviously, back when the game was still around in real life, because I have work. I've been trying to work on some self things, and it's been really hard, actually. The Players' Cup was really cool. It was cool that I qualified. It kind of helped boost the content as well, and I don't know. I don't feel like my heart is in it as it used to be, and that's why with the content I've been producing recently, I've kind of tried to focus on like the newer players and how can I help the people that were like me when I started the game, because you can only learn so much information about a deck, but if you want to do well in tournaments and stuff, you gotta push forward and learn the skills behind playing those decks. And I think it's really cool what you mentioned, Jacob, with the goals. Like having a goal of just winning games, not even tournaments, is a really good thing. And definitely during this time, it's time to like sharpen those skills, just improve little by little, day by day. And if there's anything that people are producing that's helping that, to me that's a win in my eyes. That's just what I want to do. So that kind of motivating players has helped me a lot to stay in it. But and then me not doing so well in Players Cup was also super discouraging. And yeah, but it's been rough. It's definitely been rough, and having these work hours and 5 classes a week keeps it difficult. But I think I've found this like kind of new love of producing content that improves the player and not the deck.
Yeah. Thanks for the advice, guys, and I'm glad you're all getting through it and having fun still.
Yeah, great question. That was actually probably a lot deeper of a question than I thought we'd ever get today. But yeah, I'm glad that was asked, and I'm glad to hear the other 2 answers actually.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Jacob.
No problem.
All right, well, we're gonna bring in the guy that we all love. 3 times in a row, he will be on this show. It's the one, the only, Alex Garcia. I'm not even gonna introduce. I don't need to say where you're calling from, where you're from. It's 3 times in a row. Welcome back, the guy with 2 hats, Alex Garcia. How are you doing today, my guy?
I'm actually doing pretty good despite dropping from the chill tournament tonight. But how are you, Mr. Will Jenkins and Mr. Henry Brand and Mr. Matthew himself? All 3 of you guys.
I got off work.
Sorry, I meant the Benry Hand. Sorry.
I got off work. I'm vibing. I'm here on the podcast, having a good time, and you're here, so it's obviously the best. Henry?
Aw, thanks, dude.
Well, the guy with 2 hats, now the guy with 3 hotline appearances. Thanks for always coming back, Alex. What do you got to talk to us about today?
So this actually originated from you, Henry.
Mm-hmm.
Why Lieutenant Surge is actually insane in ADP. I cannot not play the deck without Lieutenant Surge in it now. I think it is genuinely like one of the best cards in the deck. So here's the argument for the card. So if you're not going behind on prizes after you use Ultra Creation GX, you're going to win the game no matter what.
Yep.
Most of the time that's not happening. Your ADP does not last a hit anymore, as weird as that sounds. And if it does, then you're going to win the game anyway, because you almost always win the game after you pull off an ultimate ray.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do have something on the bench that isn't in ADP, you have room for the Dene or Eldegoss, which then gets you Boss, which gets you a Crobat or the Dene KO or Eldegoss KO, and from there you just need another boss to win because you're powering up another attacker. So it's better than Pokemon Catcher because Lieutenant Surge also lets you use multiple supporters, such as obviously Professor's Research and Marnie or Bill's Analysis, and it just lets you dig for all the combo pieces you might need, because ADP is kind of like a combo deck in a way. Sometimes you need to hit that double Metal Saucer attachment for turn and your Air Balloon / Switch. Sometimes you got to hit the Mawile because they have a 10-card hand, and the Boss, and the Metal Saucer and Energy and Switch. So you got to be able to reach through the deck, and that's why me personally, I like Bill's Analysis over Marnie, because it lets you dig deeper than Marnie, while Marnie is great for disruption before you use Ultra Creation, so you can go Marnie plus Ultra Creation and they might not take a KO. I think Lieutenant Surge is better for executing your strategy better, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
stronger for letting you execute your strategy.
I mean, yeah, I did mess around with this. I think that might have been where you got the idea, as you said. But let Jenks and Matt talk about it, since they are a little bit less, I guess, accustomed to the idea. What do you guys think of what Alex is saying?
Yeah, so I guess I'll go back a couple of years. I think ADP has a lot of parallels to Night March back in 2016. It more or less is like it's less about what your opponent's doing and more about making sure you execute your game plan. And back then, like if we had a card like Lieutenant Surge in Night March, I could confidently say that deck would be filthy broken. Imagine playing Lysander and Hex Maniac in the same turn. Literally busted.
Oh man, I miss Text Maniac.
I also think the Lieutenant Surge as well as I thought when it came out actually would be super broken and would not be a balanced card at all. But now that I guess it's shown its niches, especially in the greens decks. But I think it's interesting the idea of being able to play research and boss in the same turn is really, really powerful. I can only imagine in 2016 being able to play, a Sycamore and a Lysander in the same turn. That would just be, like absolutely broken. I like the idea of Surge. My only issue with it would be is that, in decks that don't have easy search for the Surge, you have to draw it first before you draw the other two supporters. So, like, in those greens decks, specifically, like, towards Center Scorch deck with Magneton, you're able to search all the supporters at one turn to sequence it well, whereas with ADP, you sort of just have to be like, oh, well, if I don't have Surge before I research, then I'm not playing boss this turn. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of flipping heads on Pokemon Catcher. It doesn't feel good to make that a win condition, and having to research and being like, oh, well, I guess if I don't flip heads on a catcher, I lose. That always feels bad. So I can see why Surge would feel a lot safer, and that you're putting your game plan more or less into playing supporters or like playing trainers that don't have flip a coin on them. I like the idea a lot, but yeah, my main issue would be drawing it first. So you might have to play like maybe Pokegears in the deck as well to really pull off that combo of going research, boss, and Surge, research, and boss in the same turn.
So Burris is clearly sleeping on the Magneton. Magneton ADP, you heard it here first. Hot take, broken deck. Why do I not like Surge in ADP? Well, straight up, I haven't tried it. But in theory, I would agree with Burris. I think you would probably need Pokegear to make it. I mean, Alex, I'm assuming your list is not. Is your list just like a regular? You don't have to go into the specifics of the list, but like, is it pretty much a normal ADP list with some surges in it?
It's a little bit. Obviously, you have stuff like build, like instead of playing Marty and stuff, you have Bill's analysis in the deck. It's just straight raw consistency. You play 3 copies of Lieutenant Surge so you can find it. Of course, you have the Eldegoss. So you saw a lot of times I actually purposefully try to find the Surge off of something like a Bill's analysis early so I can have access to it, or even discard it. Like make sure I discard it, and like I'll dead change maybe if I don't need to early on in the game, just so I can get it in the discard pile. So later on I have access to it with Eldegoss, which usually helps me win the game. I'm gonna be really honest with you.
Okay, so the stuff that's different then is you play Bills and Eldegoss?
Yes. Bills just gives you more reach in the deck.
Okay, so I like Eldegoss a lot. I'm pretty sure it's in the ADP list that I've been playing around with a little bit. Definitely a fan of that. I could see how that would help. I think Pokegears might be kind of neat. You don't even have to play 4. Like, I've played decks in the past with 2 Pokegear. I know when I was testing with Jonathan Croxton a little bit, we played like Zap Beast with 2 Pokegear and testing a little bit, and it was not bad. So I mean, that could be kind of cool. Just a couple copies of Pokegear, improve the consistency of the deck as well. But yeah, I mean, your argument for why it's better than Pokemon Catcher is fine, because with Pokemon Catcher you want to dig through your deck with ability, base draw, and research, and then use the catchers themselves. But your argument's basically like those cards are kind of dead. Only thing I could see it being a little problematic is if you get ahead with ADP, Surge is useless. But I mean, I guess at that point the argument becomes you just boss again anyways and win. So yeah,
if you get ahead with ADP, you usually win. I gotta be really honest with you.
Yeah, so I mean,
True.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Like if you don't use Lieutenant Surge, you're gonna win. If you do use Lieutenant Surge, I mean, if you're behind a price with ADP, sometimes it's hard to get back into the game. It really is sometimes, especially against stuff like, what's the word? Eternatus, who who just has all that HP, can KO you on turn 2. You need to get that heads flip on Pokemon Catcher, and having to draw into the Pokemon Catcher and flip the heads, it just seems a little bit sus, if you get what I mean.
Sus for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the main thing, the problem with it is it's really, really good against the Eternatus playing Surge and the Bills and things like that. I think it makes that matchup really favorable, but it struggles a little bit against things like the mirror mainly, because like if they're playing Catcher and you're playing Surge, then Surge isn't going to win you the mirror, unfortunately, and so that's where a little bit of the problems come in. I think in terms of fixing the Eternatus match, well, fixing, it's pretty good. Like it's really, really good because it gives you lots of reach. And things like that. And I think there's other ways as well. And Bills is really nice. It's kind of like Clay, but a little bit less risky, in that it gives you actually a lot of the time a higher odds to hit turn 1 altered than playing a research would, because you're adding to your hand rather than just like getting rid of it and potentially losing things like Energy Switch or Saucer, things like that. But I think overall, if you're worried about Eternatus, it definitely makes sense. But I think with the amount of mirror going around at the moment, it's a little bit concerning.
Actually, you'll be surprised how even the mirror is. You'll actually be really surprised, as long as you play your cards correctly. Obviously, like maybe you'll want, instead of using maybe Intrepid Store turn 1, if you have the Dene in hand, you'll Primate Wisdom, put back your Dene GX, and then use it, maybe something like that. And honestly, just max out your outs to your turn 1 Alter Creation, maybe going second. Just having the Bills analysis with the research is just so good, because it's basically like playing 6 Professor's Researches in this deck in a way, because you get access to those 7 cards. Even though you only get to pick 2 cards, it's better than not having the super duper dig. I'm going to be really honest with you. And yeah, just really helps increase that super quick turn 1 Alter Creation if you're going second, which is especially good against Center Scorch as well.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like putting your I wouldn't say luck, you're putting your variants in a different category, I guess. With Pokemon Catcher, it's quite literally the coin flip, whereas with Surge, it's more or less the order you draw your cards in. I'm sure there's a way of calculating the optimal card to have in your deck at any given point, but I think I admire the less reliance on not playing coin flip cards. I've been trying to avoid them as much as possible, because even winning games with a coin flip doesn't feel nearly as rewarding. So decks like Green Center Scorch have been playing a lot more, decks that don't have coin flips. But yeah, I definitely admire the detest to playing Pokemon Catcher, because that card is really cringe, to be honest.
Don't get me started on ADP hammers.
Don't get me started either.
I think it's interesting to see. I don't know if we've talked about it on here, but I've never really heard it before. People talking about like North American lists versus kind of the rest of the world, I guess, where Pokemon Catcher in North America is like fine. And like I'm also fine with that card as someone that tried to popularize it for Players Cup. And that, well, I guess my point is kind of destroyed because Christian Husbani kind of flagshipped it in these online events. But we've seen this before with people playing hammer decks, or not hammer decks, flip cards in mainly North America. And I think it's kind of interesting that both the Australians here disagree that catchers are good. And then there's Alex here who's like, nah, catcher sucks. But I think catcher's fine.
You guys are all morally corrupt.
Okay, so my argument isn't that catcher's bad. I just think it doesn't feel good to win with Pokemon Catcher, if that makes sense. I think also the reason ADP can play 4 Pokemon Catcher is because you play 4 of another card, which basically just gets rid of the flip a coin part at the start of the card. So I guess that'd be the argument. But in terms of like, I remember at OCIC, some of the ADP lists were playing 0 custom catches and were just playing 4 Pokemon catches, and that was like, it made me just like, it gave me goosebumps. I was like, Jesus, you really put your tournament run. The reason the deck is so good is that you can take your prize trades so efficiently on whatever you want, and yet you're putting your gust effects onto a flip a coin card. So I think Pokemon Catcher is more or less fine, just because you have your fallback option of just using your supporter for turn instead of flipping a coin. But yeah, cards like Super Scoop Up and Crushing Hammer, it doesn't feel great to win because you didn't do a whole lot. You sort of played a card and hoped you flipped heads, and if you didn't, you're like, well, okay, I guess I played to my win cons, albeit not very skillfully.
Okay, but here's the issue with that argument. That's like saying, I mean, I know it's a little bit different, but that's like saying I'm not going to play Control because Control is boring. But like my argument to counter that is if I'm playing Control and it's quote unquote boring, I'm winning, and winning is fun. There's a big difference between doing bad and winning. Winning is fun. Like if I'm playing flip cards and I'm winning, I'm happy as can be. I don't care how I'm winning. And yeah, I'll agree. I played 4 catchers in Australia with no other gust. It was pretty cringe. I tested the 8.
Yeah.
I tested the 8 gust, and I kind of wish I played that. But it went okay, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose winning is fun, but flipping tails and losing feels a lot worse. I guess is my argument to that, and making your entire win con based around flipping heads definitely doesn't feel fun if you're a competitive player trying to increase your win condition, like increase your win percentage at least above, because if you're a casual player, you'll probably aim for a 50% win rate. Whereas if you're trying to go for like consistent tournament results, having a win percentage on or below 50% is pretty. I guess the only word I could describe it is pretty unacceptable, because you're not going to get consistent results with that. You're more or less just putting it tournament. It's basically, you could basically just go to the win more money by going to the casino. Like I'd rather. Yeah, I was gonna say going to the pokies, but I don't think Americans know what that is. I'm sure Henry would, but
Yeah, no, pokies.
It's basically you could basically just go to the pokies and make have better results there than constructing a well thought out list and winning because you made the correct line and you took the right path, as opposed to putting it all on black.
Yeah, and just before we move on to our next question, Alex, give us a quick rundown of how you kind of force yourself to play Surge over Hammers and why you don't like the flips yourself. We've heard Matt's take on it. For Jenks' take, what about you?
So don't get me wrong, I love myself some evil cards. I was one of 2 people who brought Control to a regional one time, and both of us did exceptionally well. But I love my evil cards, long story short. But the thing is, I've seen people go flip tails on Crushing Hammer, pass. I don't want to be that guy. Don't get me wrong, flipping heads on Crushing Hammer pass is far better, and that can sometimes win you a game. But I'm not taking that 50% chance. I want my 80% chance to win. I just want the percentages, man. And
a great way to wrap this up. Glad to have you on our side against Jenks here, Alex. Thanks for coming.
Surrounded.
Thanks for being on.
I'm surrounded. I'm bodied. Thank you, Alex, so much, and I'm hoping we'll see you next week.
I hope so too, as long as everything goes pretty well.
All right, see you, Alex. Have a good one.
Thanks, Will. Thanks, guys.
All right, so damn, I just got ganged up on so hard right there.
Get bodied, dude.
I mean, you guys have good points. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of the times, the stuff I test and stuff I play, it's what I felt was right for that chance. And I know with Players Cup especially, Pokemon Catcher just felt right because I was losing to a lot of the matchups that I was expecting. But I don't know, didn't test a whole lot for that event. So you guys are probably right. We're gonna go ahead and slide in our next person. Gonna go ahead and once again tell chat !Discord, join the podcast topics, put the topic there, join the waiting room. You know how it goes. I'm gonna go ahead and slide in the next guest. Hello, and where are you calling from? What's your name?
Hello.
Yeah.
I did not hear anything you just said, Will.
Sorry, my bad. I basically just said, where are you calling from and what's your name?
All right. Hello, my name is Dylan. I am from Northern Virginia, and my question is, like probably most of us, basically everyone in the community, we all miss the game of Pokemon, going to our local cups and stuff. So my question is, I've been talking to a lot of people, and how do you see Pokemon coming back? Do you see? I'm not asking for a timetable because I'm sure no one knows about that, but do you see Pokemon waiting for a whole worldwide? Everyone's playing again. Everyone's going to 600-man regionals, or do you see maybe like if the United States gets their vaccine widely situated, they're doing their thing, and Europe and Australia or other places, hypothetically, are just waiting, or how do you all see it happening?
These questions have been really good actually. I was expecting like, what's your favorite burger at McDonald's, but like this is this is actually a really good question, and I think it's interesting to see how Pokemon in recent years has made the game a lot more globally interconnected, whereas in like 2016 and prior to that, it was more or less just like each country had a different circuit, and we all came together for Worlds, whereas in recent years they've sort of encouraged players to travel the world, especially with the international championships. And I think the way they're giving out travel awards at the Players' Cup would more or less indicate that they're trying their best to bring those back. From my stance, I don't see tournaments coming back for at least another year, but and I also don't see local events coming back for a while either, because as I said, Pokemon in recent years has tried to make the circuit a lot more global, and I don't think they're dropping that anytime soon with the travel award, the travel awards they're giving out at the Players' Cup. So I think I'd expect the first tournaments back to probably like try and, well, it's hard to say whether we'll get locals before a big international event, because the vaccine and like borders and stuff. I know in Australia, where I live in Queensland, it's basically, if you basically can't go in or out of my state. So it's hard to really say that we'll get local tournaments back again. But I think the western side of Pokemon will definitely try and mirror Japan's style of tournaments, where you can't play unless you pre-register. Everyone has to wear a face mask, and like regular temperature checks, and the plexiglass and stuff like that. I think for the most part, those that sort of setup for bigger events will become the norm. And I guess it'll be interesting to see at what point will they bring back the international championships, because I don't think they plan on ditching them, even if they have to wait a couple of years for them to return.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see ICs until probably 2022.
Yeah.
Just in terms of international travel and everything. And they won't put them on unless they're able to actually get everyone to come, because otherwise it's not really an international championship. I think the way Japan did things is very interesting. They had their own scandal. There's, don't want to discuss in too much detail, but there's potential some complications when it comes to how you prevent cheating without being able to, I guess, cut or shuffle your opponent's deck. They had a system where you separate a deck into 3 piles or whatever, and then your opponent picks which order they want the piles back, but it's not without flaws. So that's one aspect to be mindful of. But we'll definitely get locals before we get majors, simply because, when I say locals, I don't necessarily mean League Cups or challenges. I think they'll wait until they can have ICs again before doing a circuit. I could be wrong, but I think they won't restart it until everything's kind of safe. But yeah, we'll definitely get tournaments, small ones. I think that's where it'll start. Just your locals. They'll probably have a fixed cap. I know some countries already have them. They get maybe 10-player cap, things like that, or smaller. I'm not sure if you guys have seen any of those, but I think Some are still going in certain safer areas of the world, and that'll be our starting point, I think, and kind of try and expand from there. But it won't look the same as it did 6 months ago.
Yeah. As someone that resides in one of the countries that has it pretty bad right now, I like when people were talking about this back in March, I was just kind of like, I don't see this coming back for at least a year. It's a pretty big issue right now. It's, always has been, never stopped. But I feel like optimistically we could start to see stuff in March, but like realistically, I don't think we're seeing it next year at all. The original question was how does Pokemon open back up, and I think that even if stuff kind of goes back to normal, I wouldn't be surprised if what Japan was doing is kind of like the new norm, where we try and implement the tempered glass in between tables, face masks, like the other two were saying, but then again they have to put that on pretty much every table, and then they have to enforce people distancing and wearing face masks and stuff, and then you have people that don't want to wear face masks, and it's just a huge mess. I don't know. Without getting too political on certain topics, like whether a face mask should be worn or not, I don't see it coming back for probably another year, honestly. And it really sucks to like say that, but realistically, stuff has not been getting much better here in the U.S. And I definitely agree that maybe locals get back to business, but large scale events, you got to think about, I think it was Memphis a couple of years ago that had over 1,000 people at that tournament. Like, there is no way that's happening anytime soon.
No chance.
Yeah, I think we'll see the walk-in players completely removed. It'll be from what I would imagine, you have to pre-register or you don't get let in the door. I think that was something they were trying to do before the pandemic, at least, with registration for the internationals and stuff like that. But even for like the regionals and league cups and challenges, I think the easiest way for them to I guess manage the population of players would just be to completely say, hey, if you don't pre-register for this event, we're not letting you inside.
Yeah, and I think we'll also see a similar thing you said about temperature testing and things like that. We saw a player at Perth Regionals, which was the last regionals before COVID shut everything down. We saw someone get kicked out for coughing and being generally sick, and so we'll see that kind of thing, which should. Because even in the past, actually, at international championships, we always used to have flus and colds break out. Like it's unavoidable. It's germs spreading.
So bad, man.
Yeah,
it was so bad. Literally every time, literally every time, I'd come back and I'm like, oh yep, there's the IC virus.
Yeah, the IC
The
flu.
Poke flu.
Yeah, every single time, and I mean, on the bright side, we probably won't see that anymore. Like that'll be gone. But yeah, it'd be very unfortunate if you rock up to the event with any slight ailment.
Yeah, and
it won't look the same.
I want to get your opinion on this, Dylan, before we close this. But one more thing to mention. Yeah, the IC flu is bad. They're like, and it's not. Maybe it's just for me. It's not even the post IC thing. It's the pre IC thing. It always made me feel like. I don't know what it is about international travel for me, but Australia was the first time that I was fine pre-event. But like every time I travel to an IC, I just get bodied, whether it's a stomach cold, like a stomach flu or a head cold or something. Just like I always get there a little bit in advance, so by the time the actual event rolls around, I'm usually fine. But those like days where I'm planning on testing, absolutely bodied. In Brazil, I couldn't test. I had the worst headache. I was in the hotel room for majority of the leading up days, and it really blows. London. The year before, my brother had some type of cold or whatever going there, and I sat next to him on a 7-hour plane ride. It was bad. I couldn't talk all weekend. It was pretty awful. I tried my best to take medications and stuff. It just didn't work. But yeah, Poke flu actually blows. It sucks so bad.
Yeah, and imagine if that Poke flu was the virus.
About Pokemon opening back up.
All right. Well, I mean, obviously, I was intrigued because of what we saw from Japan recently, but they have it a little more easier because their whole circuit, their whole world invite points is like a totally different system. So I'm thinking if like America opened up before like Europe and Australia, and we have the same worlds and timetable for points and all that, then that would be a little unfair, and the community wouldn't really like it that much. So I'm thinking like eventually we'll have to wait for the whole world to get like their COVID situation situated, and the whole world's gonna have to wait on the United States probably a little bit. But yeah, hopefully, I'm hoping like once a circuit can open up, then like league cups and maybe even regionals will come back around the same time. But obviously with highly regulated things. And then international hopefully will come back in the next year after whenever that happens.
I don't know what happened. I think my headset died. Can you just restate the first part? I didn't hear any of that.
Okay, I was just saying how like Japan had it a little more easier because they have like a different championship circuit. So it's like as long as they're good, they don't have to complicate with unfairness between regions. So I'm thinking because America, Europe, and Australia and everyone's all in the same circuit, that Pokemon would like to wait for everyone until everyone's ready to go to start a circuit again. And then
Yeah, and I wonder if we'll see the return of nationals. Like if they decide to not wait for the international circuit, if they decide to open things up a little bit earlier before international travel, I wonder if we'll see a return of nationals, albeit probably temporarily.
That would be interesting as well.
Yeah, I know Singapore switched over to that system. Unfortunately for them, I think they have Singapore Nats and stuff like that. I mean, that would be cool if stuff is fine to be ran, and it's a little more tame than it is right now. But it sucks. It really does suck. But
yeah,
Dylan, I think you also had a second part that you wanted to talk about before we let you go as well.
Did I?
All right, maybe I misunderstood. Okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next person then.
All right, thank you all for your time.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. All right, so talking about the crazy times that we are in right now, we don't have anyone on deck, so if anyone wants to slide in, talk about something, that'd be pretty nice. But I think we're talking about food. This was brought up in chat, but no one wanted to slide into the call and talk about it, so I will be the caller. Yo, what is good? It's Will Jenkins. I'm calling from Myersville, Maryland, and I want to know what the fat fuck's opinion is on McDonald's, the best burger, and whether U.S. or Australia food is better. And then I want to hear the Australian blokes defend their opinion or say their opinion. We'll start with Burris.
All right. So the first part of the question was the favorite burger at McDonald's. All right.
We'll go meal actually. Let's
favorite meal. All right. So coming from somebody who works at a McDonald's in Australia, my opinion on the best meal at McDonald's is a medium double beef and bacon meal with an English breakfast tea, 1 milk, 1 sugar, and an aioli dipping sauce. Now I know the US doesn't have double beef and bacons, so for anyone who wants to recreate it at a McDonald's in the US, it's basically your McDouble, except it has no pickle and it has bacon on it instead. It has Canadian bacon, which in my opinion is the superior bacon choice. I know you'll probably thoroughly disagree with my opinion, but that is my go-to McDonald's order.
Solid. I mean, you would have a bit more expertise than I would. I know you and Jenks both have some McDonald's, some Macca's, some Don's inside info. Me personally, bit of a double quarter pounder. The double quarter pounder meal with a vanilla Coke.
You see, I wish the U.S. was blessed enough with a Benry blessed to have the double quarter pounder. I'm so dumb. The vanilla Coke in the U.S. That'd be so good. For some reason, we have this stupid Tropic Sprite. Like, no one orders it, literally ever. So just replace it with vanilla or cherry Coke, please. But I wanna back up a little bit. So not only did you just disrespect pickles on the hotline, Burris.
No. I didn't disrespect. No, I'm a fan of pickles. I'm a fan of pickles.
All right.
I low key would want a pickle on double beef and bacon.
All right.
But
That was the
continue.
fastest backtrack I've ever seen.
All right.
No, I did not backtrack. Thank you very much. I just said that double beef and bacon has no pickles on it. I never stated my opinion on pickles in general.
All right. Well, Australian Maccas then, disrespecting the pickles. But then, I thought that was it. I thought, it's just a bacon McDouble. But then you said Canadian bacon. Canadian bacon on a sandwich. Like...
Yep.
Personally, I am not a fan of the Egg McMuffins for those in the U.S. I think the Canadian bacon is... And to put it on a sandwich, I think I'd actually cringe. Like, I could not imagine eating that. I'm going to respect your opinion on this one, but you will never catch me eating a Canadian bacon slice on a McDouble. And, speaking of which, how are we going to disrespect the best sandwich on the U.S. McDonald's menu? Let me tell you about the McDouble from Don's. It's 2 for $3. You pull up to the Don's, you get your 2 for $3 McDoubles, you're saving money. Not really, because they're making you buy 2, but you get the point. You're getting a decent amount of food. Then, you pull up the app, and you cop the free large fries. And then the drinks are $1. So for the low price of $4.24 in Maryland with that sales tax, you're copping a whole damn meal. The McDouble is the greatest sandwich on the menu, and that is my absolute favorite burger on the menu. And the meal as well. And if
Bro,
you want
I
a McFlurry,
wish McDonald's was that cheap
And
in
if you
Australia,
want-
man.
if you want a McFlurry and it's past 8 o'clock, the machine's broken. We'll see you tomorrow.
True. Yeah, it's broken. It's broken. Broken. It's extremely broken.
Not gonna talk too much more about that topic in particular, but yeah, dude, it's
The
broken.
feds are gonna jump through and and close the stream down if we talk more about the broken ice cream. The broken
Just
ice
before we
cream
move
machine.
on, I just want to talk about how JP Wizard in chat doesn't like vanilla Coke, and I think it's unacceptable.
No way. Actually,
It's
no
just
way.
not okay.
Well,
Excommunicated.
I don't like any soft drink to be fair, but vanilla Coke is in my opinion superior to the other 3 Coke variants.
Agreed.
I
And what was the
agree.
second part of this topic? Well,
Of course. Does the call think U.S. McDonald's or Australian Macca's is better? I'm pretty sure I know everyone's opinion on this. We're gonna go ahead and start with Burris. Which McDonald's / Macca's establishment is better?
Okay, so I think there are 2 answers to this question. So
Really?
if you're
No
talking
way.
about value for money, it's American McDonald's every time. Australian McDonald's is extremely expensive. If I didn't have my 50% discount, I would not be eating there. I would straight up just be going across the road, getting some Guzman and Gomez for basically the same price, like McDonald's is very expensive. So in terms of like value for money, I'd go for American McDonald's. In terms of food though, I personally believe Australian McDonald's is better. Purely just because our burger selection is better, and you guys have disgusting Egg McMuffins, and your entire breakfast menu is not edible outside of the hotcakes. Which, let's be honest, they're not even the hotcakes are like you don't even know how they they're basically just microwaved. Like they're not like fresh at all. Like you literally just pop them in the microwave and they're done. Like why would I eat that, man?
All right, Henry, you're getting skipped, bro. I'm tilting so
Oh, dear.
hard. My guy just pulled up on the Don's breakfast menu. The Don's breakfast menu is actually one of the most goated things in America, like straight up. Now the hotcakes, I'll give you that one. Personally, not really a fan. But if you disrespect my boy, the steak, egg, and cheese bagel, I swear to God, I'm pulling up. The steak, egg, and cheese bagel is the most broken sandwich out there. You got your McGriddle lovers, and that's basically just pancakes with syrup as bread. Like, who doesn't like McGriddles, bro? They're so insane. Plus, you get some sausage, you get some cheese. I don't personally like fast food egg, but they have that too. You could swap the sausage for bacon. You got the whole shebang. Then you got the biscuits. Biscuits, sweet tea, and I don't think you guys have sweet tea. I could be wrong, but in my state we have sweet tea. Some McDonald's have sweet tea. Biscuit and sweet tea, blessed. Oatmeal from McDonald's, fire. Oatmeal from McDonald's is insane. It is so good. You got some diced apples, you got some cranberries. It's nuts. And then the McMuffins. Not a fan of the Egg McMuffin. I'll give you that one too.
Agreed.
But then you're gonna put the Canadian bacon on a sandwich anyways, so I don't understand that part. But yeah, don't disrespect the steak, egg, and cheese bagel, and we can't forget the hash browns. The actual goated part of the menu, the tier 1. You can't forget it. If you're ordering breakfast,
okay, but
you don't get
hash browns. Hash browns are barely even the breakfast menu anymore.
What are you talking about? It's
bro. All I'm saying is, like hash browns, like are basically just an all-day food. Like I swear to God, man. Like I wouldn't even put the hash brown. The hash browns are just like a staple part of the menu at this point. Like I wouldn't even group it in. It's like saying fries are part of the lunch menu. It's like it's not. It's more about like the meal part, like the burgers and the muffins and stuff like that. I will say though, I'm not hearing a lot of vegetable content right now. I'm hearing a lot of processed meat. I'm hearing a lot of cheese. I'm hearing a lot of carbs right now. Maybe some lettuce, some tomato.
If you're rocking up to Macca's and you're complaining about the quantity of vegetables, I think you should be going to a different.
Bro, but that's what I'm saying. Australian McDonald's has breakfast food with vegetables on it, man. I'm just saying, dude. The BLT McMuffin is the greatest breakfast item in the in the world right now. And American McDonald's doesn't even have that.
This is like playing 3 Crushing Hammer instead of 4 because you're like, oh well, there's one less, so that's a little bit better.
Okay, so you got the BLT.
No, why I'm arguing. I'm arguing about vegetables with Henry Brand, the man who hasn't left his house in like 5 days. And an American man. I always lose this argument. I'm just gonna say what I'm saying,
Bro, the McMuffin BLT. What else? Name another one.
Okay.
What other breakfast sandwiches have lettuce on it?
No, that's it.
Oh, that's it.
You don't have anything to compete with that.
We have this. I mean, they're not breakfast, but we do have salads. We have fruit cups. I know.
Okay, the salads are garbage, by the way.
Bro, you guys. No, okay. Southwest salad. Don't disrespect on my man. Southwest salad's gas, but you guys literally have baby tomatoes as a Happy Meal option. What?
Oh yeah, no, that's garbage.
What kid is pulling up to McDonald's? They're like, Mom, I want to go to McDonald's so bad. Please get me this Happy Meal. Then the depressed worker that is there is like, God damn it, another Happy Meal, bro. And they start boxing it, and they're like, this kid wants tomato slices? Like, I couldn't imagine if I'm eating out.
No. Okay, I completely agree with you on that. I don't know why that's on the menu, man. Dude, it's basically checkmating your child, dude. Your child's like, man, I want to get a Happy Meal so bad, Mum. Please, can we just pull through the drive-thru? I just want to get that cool Transformers toy, man. Like turns into a car. How sick is that? And the mum's like, all right, I'll deal with this little shit, man. I'll drive the drive-thru, and the mum's just like, hey, can I just get tomatoes instead of chips? Bro, that is the ultimate checkmate, man. Like, that kid is just, like, having trust issues for the rest of his life, man. Bro, imagine you pull up to a McDonald's and get tomatoes. That is the saddest existence.
At least in the US, it automatically includes fries and you can get apple slices. Like, the apple slices are loaded with sugar. Like, I mean, okay, I'll give you guys that. I do think we've had this discussion before off the cast, and the Australian ingredients are a little bit more acceptable because of health laws or whatever.
Yeah. That's why I prefer Australian McDonald's. Not that I've tried the US one, but I think I don't really plan on it. I go to Macca's. I know I'm getting a bit unhealthy, but kind of know it's somewhat passable as food.
But I mean, I think Burris and I could argue and agree on this topic for ages. I think we've both worked at a Don's establishment for 2+ years. this is something we could get really passionate about. And honestly, this could be its own 24-hour stream at this point because this topic is way too broad. My final opinion, I don't care if I'm biased. I've had both. It's US all the way. It's not even close.
Yeah, it's definitely. Look, I'm gonna be honest. The reason I eat at McDonald's, as I said before, is because I get 50% off. So it's just a cheap feed. And so if we're going off cheap feeds, then America probably wins. But in terms of ingredients, contents, I think Australia edges out America. But that's my final say. I'm not gonna get too heated. I'm not gonna get tilted by my man's trash talking my Canadian bacon because I think it's very much it's very much an opinion, and there's very little factual arguments to be argued about, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Chat wants me to be the tiebreaker, and I weigh in and at Australian McDonald's.
Whoa, what? That's just not fair. I think, all right, you know what? Chat's on my side. I've seen enough U.S. McDonald's is better. I'll take my dub. GG's, boys. I can't believe we just talked about this for 18 plus minutes. Only the hottest takes on the hotline, of course. I think we have a caller. Lucas didn't read my message in the podcast topics channel, but he is in chat. Lucas, what's your topic? And we'll slide you in here. But yeah, and I think I saw someone earlier. Bob, I think, said Canadian Cadbury McFlurries. Those are pretty good. I will not lie.
Ooh.
They're pretty good.
Bro, the McFlurries are good. It's just they're like in Australia they're $5.
Oh God.
Like, why are they so expensive? Yeah. I mean, I know that sounds like really bad to Americans because your currency is worth more, but like, man, even in Australia, like $5 for like soft serve and like some random ingredients like crushed, like M&Ms or whatever. $5, man. I'm not putting $5 into some soft serve, bro. That is just a rip-off.
I want to touch on one of the greatest atrocities to happen to the country of Australia, and that was the 50-cent soft serve cone from Macca's. It used to be 50 cents, and then it was dropped to 30 cents for a couple of years, right? And they're like, suss out the 30-cent soft serve cone. And now it is 70 cents.
Our cone
what
is
you doing,
devastating.
Macca's?
Our cone is $1.90 after tax, so I don't understand what the problem is.
What? Bro, that thing better have gold leaf on it, dude. I swear to God, man. That shit better have gold leaf. It better have like a whole like Kit Kat sticking out the top, bro. I would never order that in a million years, man. $1.90.
Yeah, you guys are talking about 70 cents Australian, bro. I'm talking about the US dollar. McFlurries are like $3.19. Like, I do not understand why people don't just go and get like entire quarts of ice cream for like.
Bro, yeah, you could literally pull up to a Walmart and get a whole tub of ice cream for that much, right? Like, surely.
Yeah, close enough. But yeah, see, like I said, this can go on forever. I'm gonna go ahead and drag the next caller in. He wants to talk about a deck, and then after this, we're probably gonna wrap. Here we go. Yep. Lucas, welcome back to the podcast. What's the topic, my guy?
So, my topic is like Luke Metal. I've been playing a Luke Metal a lot recently. Like that's just what I've been playing for like the past month. Working on it a lot, and I've been finding that like Fire is probably your least winnable matchup. Anything if you put in weakness guard energy, that doesn't even help that much because that's two energies that they can just attack, and then you need to hit it again, and then most of the time I'm just whiffing that second weakness guard when I need it. And like my question is like, do I just take that as an auto loss, or do I try to put in like a Bronx song because not many people are playing double and Cramorant now?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and like for Players Cup, we definitely knew that the Bronzong was going to be our hard counter to the fire decks because not many of them prepared, and I think now you've made a good assessment on the metagame where like people have the Luke medalists have been cutting Bronzong, so in turn the Center Scorchers have been cutting the double and the Cramorant. So I think Grant Manley posted an article and has been saying on Twitter that he's still playing the Bronzong to whatever success he may be having, and I think that might be a decision that Luke Metal players have to make in advance. I definitely agree with your assessment that the weak guards rarely help that matchup. I know the resident Luke Metal master Jake Gearhart would probably vehemently disagree with that statement, seeing as every one of his lists have been playing the weakness guard, but just based off the fact that Todd's green center scorch list has 0 outs to a Bronzong, that might be an assessment that you could make. But in general, I think you really want to increase your win percentages in the other matchups. Like, I still firmly believe that ADP is a close matchup, just based on the fact that if you can't full metal wall on the turn before they ultimate ray, the game becomes really hard because they flood the board with energy and you just can't keep up with their attackers. So I would personally not play the Bronzong, but if the fire decks are becoming an issue, and you're content with just playing Luke Metal, then maybe switching to a Bronzong variant could definitely bring some success.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I've tried to put in a Bronzong. I played in the Sunday Open, completely bombed it. Bronzong didn't help me once.
Yeah.
And okay, I know this isn't on topic, but when you said ADPZ is a hard matchup because if you don't full metal wall when they creation, you just have a super hard time. Like, what I've been finding is you just full metal wall the Zacian, make them go back into ADP. You have a metal goggles on your Luke Metal, and you're taking 120 from an ADP. Then Mallow Lana that damage off, then you just Steel Fist Zacian. Just Steel Fist
I think.
Zacian.
Yeah, so that play definitely works, but not being able to Crobat in the same turn means that if your hand is just if your turn is basically Malilana plus Steel Fist, then you don't get another attachment or whatever, it really decreases your win percentage because Luke Metal's a deck that doesn't play Dene or Crobats, meaning that pretty much your hand has to be perfect to be able to pull off a Malilana. And I still think even if you Malilana off the ultimate ray damage, they've gotten more value out of they've gotten more expected value out of that ADP than they ever would have. Just based off the fact that even though the ADP to net 0 damage, they still flooded their board with energy, meaning they're able to power up multiple Zacians. And in the late game, they can even power up 3 Zacians in a game because Luke Metal does struggle to find Gust in the later sections of the game, just based off the fact they have no non-supported draw. So I still think that matchup is rough, and you definitely want to be making sure you increase your win percentage in that, considering how it's sort of the deck to beat right now, I suppose.
Yeah,
definitely
I agree
see
with
that
what
as
Burris
a
is saying. Yeah, as well, because Luca Metal's too fair of a deck in a way compared to everything else, right? It's fair. I think there's no way around it. And you're trying to play against ADP, which is, I guess, the most unfair deck. So it's two very deep sides of the coin, and so and it's also very easy for ADP to tech for Luca Metal. And so I think it's easier to try and reinforce those matchups rather than worrying about fire, at least at the moment. But as Matt said, I think you can try and just catch. If a lot of people are going to play center score, you should try and catch them off guard with Bronzong is probably your best bet. And weak guards also help actually more against Mewtwo than they do fire decks. And they actually help a fair bit against Mewtwo.
Yeah, I would strongly agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to touch on the ADP part too much, just from my personal experience playing Luke Metal. I think weak guards kind of blow. I would agree that they're more useful for the Mewtwo matchup than anything else. And the Bronzong, I feel like it just makes my deck worse. So, to be fair, when I said I'm not playing weak guards and I'm not going to play Bronzong, I ended up I ended up queuing into 3 fire decks in Players Cup qualifiers and losing once in top 4 and 2 in top 8. So, I mean, I guess that's my fault. But then again, Tord was popularizing it, so it probably wasn't a good play in the first place. But, yeah, I think you're best off keeping your deck consistent and not playing a whole bunch of junk like Bronzong and Pokemon Communication. But if you think fire decks are going to be that popular and you still want to commit to playing Luke Metal, maybe the Communications in Bronzong is the way to go.
I mean, yeah, but okay. So this is also off topic. This is like way off topic, but everyone is saying AP just breaks the format. Okay, if AP with if you play against it right, you can play so that the ADP player it isn't just boss win. You know, I've been discussing with one of my friends via Skype. We've actually been thinking ADP shouldn't be banned and it isn't even that big of a problem because if you're playing ADP, if you're playing just with the whole ADP is just broken because it takes extra prizes, I just don't really see why, I just don't really see why it should be banned. It's another deck that you have to tech for. It's another deck that you have to play against, and it's just I don't really see the way why ADP should be banned, and we should just be able to play in a format with no ADP and no worry about having to tech for a deck that is powerful enough to beat you if you are not ready for the matchup. Of course you're gonna lose. Of course, that's how it goes with everything. And I know that it's kind of biased for me to say that, knowing from previous I don't even know how to say that past accomplishments. I was kind of biased, but if we removed ADP from the format, it's just another deck that you have to tech a lot for. It's another deck that you have to test against, and I just don't see a reason why we should ban it.
All right.
Yeah, so your ADP argument's actually pretty strong. I also don't think it should be banned. I know this was probably going to be the last question, but I thought I'd say my piece on it before we leave. I do agree that ADP is not ban-worthy. I do, however, think it's unfair to say that it's a deck that can be easily teched for because its strategy is so inherently I wouldn't say not inherently good, but its strategy is inherently just untechable. Because if you not only would you have to tech for that matchup, you also have to literally not miss a beat against your average ADP player. It's a deck that has a game plan versus just about anything. And the power level on all the cards like Zacian and Metal Saucer and Boss and Professor's Research, and you're basically playing the 60 most powerful cards in the format, and you're taking extra prizes while you do it. It's sort of a deck that's just not really fun, and it's also not fun to play with, or for the most part play against. And that would probably be the reason why a lot of people are actually not having fun with the format. Just because even if you come up with a rogue idea, there's only so much you can do against an ADP. Because if you have a slow start to the game, you're basically never catching up.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that a lot. I just forgot what I was gonna say. What was I gonna say? Crap. Okay. I remembered. So that just also against ADP, that increases the skill gap of not just having to rely on Crobat and Dedenne to draw through your deck on the first turn. You can actually you actually have to play the game without benching Dedenne and Crobat. That makes it that just makes I think it's good that it makes it more. You have to be more careful when benching your Crobats and your Dedennes, and then you also have to find times to discard them so they don't Mile Wow you. And I definitely see a way where if we just remove people just started timing their Crobats into Denes correctly, we could definitely see.
Okay, I'm gonna cut you off because if you're drawing well enough to the point where you don't need to use Crobat and Dedenne to keep up with ADP, then you should be winning anyway. Like you don't have this room to actually like this is an illusion, right? Like obviously there's gonna be times where you can play well and not play into that, but that's not that difficult, right? And you can't keep up with ADP, a deck that can use these Dedenne and Crobat without getting punished, abuse boss, things like that. And now I'm not advocating for it to be banned, but it doesn't have this kind of counterplay that you're alluding to. It just doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, it's
the end of the day.
you're saying with ADP, it's basically saying, hey, I get to use these cool cards like Dedenne and Crobat, but you're not allowed to. That's not on. You know, I'm just gonna win because if you use them, it sort of like gatekeeps these powerful cards, and I guess it's even more I guess heightened by the fact that you can't play a supporter on the first turn, meaning that you sort of have to fill your deck with these cards that, and I guess also the game's slowly being converted to like more Pokemon based rather than trainer based, because I think it's easier for the marketing team to market those cards towards people. But that's a completely different topic. But yeah, I agree with Henry. Like, it's easier. It's not like it's less of a skill thing and more of like a luck thing, being able to play a game without relying on those support Pokemon at least.
Yeah.
And when it comes to a welder deck as well, like, you know, you say discard your Dedenne things. What if you can't? What if your hand's just dead? Right? Like if you
Yeah.
discard your Dedenne or something that's dead, you know, things like that. Or what if your opponent plays Mobile after you've taken prize cards, and then suddenly you've taken 3 prize cards, you get hit from there. What if like they just play it at the start of the game, right? To try and break your hand, like things like that. Like, sure, there's some counterplay, but saying that it's like so much that you should be able to beat ADP with those counterplay like techniques reliably is not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to wrap this topic because we're going past, but my final say on this is I strongly agree with everything Henry just said. The problem might not be ADP as a card, it's the stuff that surrounds it, and through my Players' Cup experience, I have tried so hard to play around Mawile, and if I have a bad opening hand, bad is subjective to playing against ADP, because the hand could be fine against literally any other deck where I can use my support Pokemon and
True.
But against ADP, if I can't bench those Pokemon because I know it's just going to get gusted and knocked out and then I can't use it, I'm not drawing cards. And then it's like, okay, well, my options are I sit here, do nothing, and hope to God that they don't Mawile me, or I discard my only support from my hand, and then I'm left with an actual dead hand because my support is gone, or I try and tempo race them, and it usually doesn't work out because if you miss a beat, you automatically lose, just because your opponent is... You're assuming they're going to be able to operate their strategy. And another thing Henry said, prize cards. One of the things I put on Twitter, I lost because I took a Dedenne off my prize cards. So you can sit there, you can Hearth, you can Quick Ball, you can get rid of all the support Pokemon from your hand, and you're just so unlucky that one of your Dedennes in your last 4 prize cards is prized, and then you draw it, and then they're like, Mawile time. Or they're like, Marnie, Mawile. They drop your hand, and you drew Dedenne. So, like, yeah, you're getting unlucky, but... there really isn't counterplay to stuff like that, and the discarding stuff from your hand just does not work like that. And the same with if you're playing like Altaria Obstagoon or whatever. I had to do some content on that deck, and the amount of times that an ADP would just Mawile my bench Pokemon from my hand, then I can't win. I don't know. As someone that's changed my stance on the way ADP is viewed, I just cannot agree with that opinion at all.
Yeah.
Just before we wrap up, I'm going to touch on as well, like, I think ADP is a symptom, not a problem. I think the problem, as we can see from all this kind of, like, as we're saying, it's the Dedenne, it's Crobat, it's like we're losing because of that. It's a lot to do with our engines and the way our game is kind of evolved, and ADP kind of exploits that, and that's why we have these problems.
Yep.
Yeah, but thank you, Lucas, for coming on and voicing the opinion. I think... You cleared up some things that could be said about ADP, and we were able to talk about them a little bit. You had some agrees, some disagrees, but yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, so the McDonald's if the McDonald's topic didn't get me riled up, that did. Like I said, with this podcast, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but that's something I super disagree with, and my Players Cup run has made me super tilt. I don't know, susceptible to being tilted on that topic. But a good wrap, a good episode. We had good bit of guests coming in. Another episode of the Hotline, hot takes, hot topics. We definitely got into that with the Don's topic. So if you like McDonald's, I think you had a pretty good time in that end of the episode topic. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to Henry and Matthew before I say some closing thoughts. And yeah.
Thanks for all the guests we had today. We didn't have as many as we have the previous times, but it was good, and we got to have a little bit of our fun fast food chat. Thanks to our friend Maddie Burris for coming on. You got any shout outs?
Yo, shout out to McDonald's for paying me the big bucks. And shout outs to Will and Henry for having me on. I always like expressing my opinions, whether they be factually incorrect or not. I like stating them regardless, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to do so.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to be it from us on the Hotline. Grab yourself a steak, egg, and cheese bagel. Big vibes. Have a good one, everyone. And we'll see you all next Wednesday with a new guest. Have a good one, guys.